Yo, what's up guys? Welcome to my channel. Let's jump right in. Just when you think that things couldn't get any worse, you find out that there are actually people who follow Brother Polight. And here's why I say that, because you may have seen the reaction video I made a while back responding to some of his claims. And if you haven't seen it, the link is in the description and it's right up here. But ever since I made the video, I've been getting a barrage of insults from his army of enlightened and woke followers, right? So this video is going to be me responding to the attacks and disagreements and really the flat-out stupidity of Brother Polight's clan. So, pay attention that some of their responses come in the form of argumentation, which I'll attempt to answer, but the rest of them are just nonsense. You'll see. So Brother Polight made a video explaining how God doesn't exist and that black people shouldn't follow Christianity because it was made up by the white man and it was given to black people during the time of slavery. So I made a video in response to his, giving arguments for the existence of God, and his people didn't like that. Comments started to pour in from people that apparently believe that Polight's worldview is actually intelligent and consistent. Now, let's take a look. Now, the first one is just funny. It says, "Your analogies are trash." I mean, come on, man. That hurts. I mean, wow. Don't be a bully. Don't be a bully, right? Now, what about this one? This guy actually wants to see us debate. "I would love to see you go live with Brother Polight." Now, this other guy agrees and says, "Polight may be a scammer, but he would wash this dude," right? Did you guys actually hear about that? I guess that's in reference to the news that Brother Polight scammed a guy out of over $70,000. Now, I don't have all the details, but it's all over the web. Oh, here's a good one. Alan Lawrence says, "This is a blah, blah, blah video. I'm no fan of Brother Polight, but to say that there is an objective morality is to deny the reality that thousands of different religions have been formed, and yet still humans cannot develop a consensus on morality." So apparently he is not a fan of Brother Polight, but he has a problem with the moral argument. Now, his problem is with objective morality. You know, I think it's safe to say that he believes that morality is subjective. In other words, he's saying that to say that something is right or wrong depends on what a person or perhaps a group of people decide is right or wrong. Now, the argument he gives for his position is that humans, having set up a variety of religions, haven't been able to agree on a particular moral standard. Yes, there was a period in time when certain behaviors were allowed, and then later on those same behaviors were outlawed. Let's take a look at slavery, for example. Slavery was a thing back in the day. I mean, it was commonplace for a person to buy and sell and trade slaves, completely within the bounds of the law. Then later on, slavery was abolished. But let me ask you a question. When slavery was permitted, was it moral? Was it good? Was it right? Or was it wrong? I can almost bet, especially if you would have been one of those slaves at that time, I can almost bet that you'd say that it was wrong at that time in history to buy, sell, and trade slaves, regardless of its legal status. I mean, just because it was allowed doesn't mean it was moral. In addition, just because it was outlawed doesn't mean that morality changed. Slavery has never been moral, just allowed. Remember, how people behave is different from how they ought to behave. Mike Larry says, "Stop trying to down-talk another man about his knowledge and belief system, and try to give knowledge back to your people. Like he is doing..." Oh, okay. "And try to give knowledge back to your people like he is doing. I've never seen a negative video he made, but you are taking time out of your day not to give knowledge, but to criticize." Wow, Mike. Hey, listen, let me speak directly to you and anyone else this applies to. One of the reasons why I do what I do on YouTube is because there are so many people who get easily influenced by people like Polight. It's not that Brother Polight is spreading truth and knowledge that I made this video, but because he is using empty rhetoric and sophistry to capture the minds of individuals who, in my opinion, want to be a part of a movement that is different from what they have grown up believing, right? Now, you know, part of a movement that provides them a sense of identity. And as black people, this is one of the things that we often lack. That's a sense of identity. Brother Polight has provided that. However, this identity Identity is built on a warped sense of truth and the all too common feeling of being isolated from our culture, not based on truth and knowledge, not based on being woke. Just saying. Why weren't dinosaurs in the Bible if God created heaven and earth? Shut your house blankety blank up. Foul mouth, man. Then there's Lowell Jones. Doesn't he look like Waka Flocka in this picture? You lost too. How you gonna argue God, then use science? Shake my head. That's what he said. That's what he did. It sounds like he's suggesting that God and science are incompatible. Now, two things about this one. First of all, if God didn't exist, we couldn't even use science. Why? Because in order for science to work, we must depend on the non-physical or immaterial realm. Things like the laws of logic, for example, are in this category. Now, if God does not exist and all there is the material world, meaning matter and energy, then there wouldn't be any explanation for the laws of logic, which do exist and does not consist of matter and energy, which we need in order to conduct science. Now, that may seem a bit abstract. Let me illustrate this by using the law of non-contradiction. The law of non-contradiction says that a thing cannot be X and not X at the same time and in the same sense. Now, that's the definition. Now, here's how we apply it to real life. Let's say a cop gets called up to testify in court and says that he heard gunshots coming from the 3rd floor of an apartment building. And then the judge says, wait, this isn't a credible witness. And then he charges him with perjury. Why? Because the cop is deaf. You can't hear and be deaf at the same time. Being deaf is an absolute negation of being able to hear. A thing can't be X and not X at the same time and in the same sense. Science requires laws like this, laws like the law of non-contradiction, and others must exist in order for science to be reliable and taken seriously. But if God does not exist and all there is the material world, then the laws of logic would not exist. And if the laws of logic do not exist, then science could not and would not even be a thing. Now, to fully explain this concept would literally take another 2 or 3 videos, but here's a good link for a more detailed explanation of this. The second thing is, it's getting hot. I'm just gonna suggest this video by my friends and colleagues from What Do You Mean, Vocab Malone, and Acts 17 Apologetics. Subscribe to their channels too. Okay, so check this out. Neek says this. He said that everything has a cause and effect, but then said that the thing that caused the cause has no cause. Ha 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 ha. He must not have been listening too well, because I never said that everything has a cause and effect. What I said was, whatever begins to exist has a cause. Then when I responded to him to correct him, he asked me this. Operation Apologetics. So if God began to exist, wouldn't he also have a cause? And once you respond and say that God doesn't have a cause and that he just appeared, wouldn't that be going against the argument that he's trying to make in the first place? The answer is yes. If God began to exist, then he too would have to have a cause. Notice, the argument is not that God began to exist, but that God is the first cause that is also uncaused. Now, how did I arrive at that conclusion? I can rephrase the Kalam argument like William Lane Craig does. Premise 1. If the universe began to exist, then there must have been a transcendent cause that brought the universe into being. Premise 2. The universe began to exist. Therefore, number 3, there must have been a transcendent cause that brought the universe into being. Now, since the universe cannot cause itself and is not eternal itself, then the first and second premises would appear to be true. Now, if that is the case, then there has to be a transcendent cause, transcending time, space, and matter. And the Bible illustrates clearly that God transcends all things that make up the universe. Genesis 1:1, for example. Then there was Chris Moon. Chris Moon says this. I didn't like this video. He twisted what Brother Polight talking about. I'm quite sure Polight would give him a debate. No black man, here's what he says. No black man knew about Jesus before white folks. Fact. Chris Moon, what you have said is completely wrong. Acts 8:26 through 40. Let's just start there. Now, this particular passage is about an Ethiopian eunuch. who was on his way back home after leaving Jerusalem to worship. So on his way home, he was reading from the prophet Isaiah, and here's what he was reading. Like a sheep, he was led to the slaughter, and like a lamb before its shearer is silent, so he opens not his mouth. In his humiliation, justice was denied him. Who can describe his generation? For his life is taken away from the earth. Well, Philip, one of the disciples, met up with the Ethiopian, and the Ethiopian asked him, who is this prophet speaking about in these verses? Can you guess what happened next? Then Philip opened his mouth, and beginning with the scripture, he told him the good news about Jesus. About who? Jesus. Now, for those of you who are thinking to yourselves that Ethiopians aren't black, then take that up with the Ethiopians themselves, who are so black that they consider themselves to be the real Wakanda. No, I'm not joking. And by the way, this all took place several centuries before the white man attempted to even conquer Ethiopia. Direct refutation of Chris Moon's assertion that no black man knew about Jesus before white folks. Last one before I go. Create Strategy says this. Oh no, Mama. Hold on. Polight would honestly, wholeheartedly, brutally destroy you and literally pick you apart in a debate. Please rethink this video and rethink yourself. Whoa, like to rethink everything about myself? Although I won't be debating Brother Polight anytime soon, there is a brother that I've had the pleasure of meeting recently who is planning a debate between himself and Brother Polight. You can also find his channel in the description. This should be epic. I hope this video made some of you think and rethink your opinions and ideas about God, Brother Polight, and the types of movements that you follow out of merely wanting to belong. Now remember, Christ is the only way, the truth, and the life. No man comes to the Father except through him. Thanks for watching.